The last person responsible for all of this dies tonight.
If we make it out of here, you think you're ready?
I was made for this.
Citadel Command, this is Captain Cross. Mission accomplished. I have Colonel Taggart in custody. Ready for extraction. Report. Taggart's order led directly to the collapse of the Central Blue Zone.
Welcome home. Operation Red Light is over.
What about our men? The ones on the ground in Manhattan?
You didn't think I was that naive, did you? When you have a festering wound, you cauterize it. We'll be saving millions of American lives. I won't let you erase New York like you erased hope.
Let! We're 6 minutes out, and only I know the code.
You were at Hope, Idaho. You took something from Elizabeth Green. I know what Blackwatch has done. Because everyone I've killed, they're in me. They are me.
That's how you... I've stopped this damn thing before. Stopped it dead. Hope Idaho was just a sacrificial lamb. Necessary cruelty. Shoot anything that moves. No one comes in, nothing gets out.
Sir, the walkers have sealed themselves in the hospital. We have orders to liquidate the entire population.
The mother and child are now military assets. And I just made general officer.
You bastard. You could have stopped all this. You let it happen.
When the weapon detonates, and they think the infection is cleansed, they won't be looking for me. And when I consume you, I'll be able to withstand even this.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the finale of Let's Play Prototype. You weren't expecting this, were you? Well, not a lot of people are actually expecting this. It is a second Supreme Hunter fight, and our final boss.
Target update. All points, target update.
Before I actually get started into talking about why this is what it is, let's talk about the boss fight in general. Because there's not a lot to actually discuss. Fighting the Supreme Hunter is pretty much the same as what it was last time. The only difference is now that he has Devastators. Specifically, the Tendril Barrage. I think it's the only one he actually has. Other than that, the only difference is fighting on the Reagan, no infected reinforcements, it's just military around. Military are dropped in by the helicopters as reinforcements, so they're not necessarily limited. Also, you can hijack helicopters too, to help you out. The only problem is that the military don't necessarily understand what is supposed to be the priority target at this point, so they'll go after you a lot. Yeah. Hey, Zeus is on the Reagan! Oh, but there's this giant, huge, muscly thing over here, too. Should we take that out, too? No. Focus on Zeus. Another thing about the Devastators is that, don't get hit by them. Because if you do, chances are you're gonna die. Especially if you don't have Adrenaline Surge. That may be your only saving grace, because if you get hit by it, say goodbye to all of your health. Dying in this final mission doesn't necessarily give you just a death screen like the same way. It actually gives you access to the bad ending of the game. So we'll see that really shortly because, well, we're not doing very well on health. There's not a lot of good ways in terms of getting health because you have to rely on consuming the military around. And if there isn't military around, this happens.
Abandoned ship, all crew, abandoned.
Yep, so, abandoned ship, abandoned, and everybody dies. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to consume Randall if he was the only one who knows the code. And wouldn't that mean that we know the code as well because we consumed Randall? Although it didn't necessarily look like we actually consumed him. It was a bit unconventional the way that it kind of just skipped to its thing. And the elevator apparently works. So other than that, fighting him is pretty much the same. Throwing things and using your muscle mass boost is the best way of doing actual damage to him. Doing things like air slices take too long because eventually he'll just guard everything around you and, well, oh boy, it's just annoying. So let's talk about how this boss fight is what it is for a little bit. Specifically, why isn't it something else that technically would make a lot more sense? Specifically, Pariah. If you were following everything that's going on in this game, including the Web of Intrigue, you would have seen that it should have been a different boss fight. And also, you may have noticed that these Skull Star fighters here, fighter jets, for a little bit of a change of pace, and these helicopters really are weird. I'm just gonna say that. Especially when everybody destroys everything. Look at that spin, though. That's great. But you can see that you can target these guys. And based on just experimentation's sake, I wanted to see if you could actually hijack these things. Because even though it is the final mission, it would have been really cool to fight with a new kind of plane. So maybe we're able to do it? And it looks like the answer is no, because we can't long shot grab onto it. So hijacking the cool fighter jets apparently doesn't work. You also can't throw these things either, unless they're destroyed. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Pariah, because close to the end of the game we start getting more information about him. Especially what he is and just kind of building up to this potential meeting of Alex and Pariah, because we've already dealt with Elizabeth Green. That doesn't happen, which is kind of annoying. Backflip! I told you these helicopters are weird. I love the backflip. It's so great. But then another thing to start discussing and kind of thinking about is how is Cross a Supreme Hunter? I think it's safe to assume that there's only one Supreme Hunter in this game, and it's the one we fought before. Ow. Luckily I was on the very edge of the Devastator, so it didn't take everything out.
Target mark. 10
And that helicopter appeared out of nowhere to just start wiggling. Thanks. So we fought the Supreme Hunter, we killed him completely, rescued Dana, and got out of there. But you saw at the end of that cutscene that the what was it? That the Supreme Hunter or something else regrew from it. So I could safely assume that it was the Supreme Hunter coming back again, because he's kind of the closest thing to Alex. He kind of has very similar moves. Another way of dealing damage to him, of course, is the Critical Cane Devastator, which is also really good. But this guy has a lot of our different moves, including Ground Spike, Devastators. He's really powerful. He kind of uses the Hammer Fist as well, and a little bit of the Blade. Everything goes slow motion. And what did I... Okay, never mind. So the Supreme Hunter regrew, or became something else but was still the Supreme Hunter. And the only reason I could think of that crosses the Supreme Hunter is because helicopters get in my way, and also because of that the last cutscene we saw Cross in before we actually met him, after we defeated Elizabeth Green, when he was fighting off against a bunch of infected. There was that one infected that we saw through his vision that kind of went after him, and either went over the fence in order to get after him, or grew into something else and then went after him. Safe to say that, well, maybe he grew into the Supreme Hunter again, went after Cross, and Cross got killed. He got consumed by the Supreme Hunter. When Cross was consumed, the Supreme Hunter got all of his thoughts and all of the inner workings that Cross learned about Blackwatch, and that's how he was able to feed us information by being our contact. He also kind of gained a lot more intelligence, I guess, in terms of that, instead of just being the big brutish brute. But that's kind of my assumption about what's going on in terms of this fight and how it came to be. But again, the plot doesn't give you any information other than all of these assumptions, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, really? You're gonna do... Okay. Consuming people kind of doesn't work all that well either, especially when the Supreme Hunter will most likely come after you a lot. This fight has a lot of annoyances in terms of who is targeting who. Because the Supreme Hunter will usually just go after you, and power bombing does not work. His Devastators also don't help with in terms of getting health back, because he kills a lot of the military in the area. There we go, that's a little bit better.
This is Red Crown to all crew. We'll remain on station to coordinate. Everyone else needs to abandon the Reagan right now. Support vessels to perform pickup duty and retreat to minimum safety. That is a general
The final
order.
countdown has begun.
Right now.
Yes, so now that we're down to the last third of his health, which means that everything kind of ramps up. The cutscene kind of said that we were 6 minutes out, so apparently the last... It hasn't been 3 minutes, but now it is 3 minutes, and we have 3 minutes in order to take care of him completely. Another thing I have to mention about the plot is that the last mission took place on day 15, and the beginning of this mission, which is kind of returning to the beginning of the game in that cutscene, happens on day 18. There is a 3-day gap between the two missions where we consume Taggart and get our ticket onto the Reagan, and when we actually do get to the Reagan. How big of a plot hole do you think? I think that's a gigantic plot hole. Of what were we doing for 3 days of the infection?
2 minutes remaining.
So one final thing about this mission is that, well, I was talking about how difficult it is to target somebody, and it's kind of annoying when there's a lot of military out in the area, but it's better when there's at this point, because you don't get any more reinforcements here. An additional challenge because you don't get any other way of getting health back, so you have to be careful. But in terms of fighting against the Supreme Hunter, other things will be targeted except for this guy. But if you use the muscle mass boost, you should be good to go. Don't be careless, because that can easily just take you out, no problem, and you'll have to start over. Maybe he will. Maybe he is kind of the way of a zombie. If you take off his head, he's fine. But that is it for that final boss. Not really my favorite, honestly. Of all the boss fights between Captain Cross, the Supreme Hunter, a regular hunter, and Elizabeth Green, he's not really that great. I kind of wanted something different. But that is it. And this will be our final mission complete screen, so you can kind of see the full expenditure that we got, which is pretty high. It's really ridiculous. So now we have one last thing to deal with, the nuke. Can we get it out of here in time?
I looked for the truth. Found it. Didn't like it. Wish the hell I could forget it. Alex Mercer. The city suffered for his mistakes. For what he did at Penn Station. And whoever he was, that's a part of me. Because when I close my eyes, I see the memories of 1,000 dead men screaming as I take their lives. Moments I'll relive forever. What have I become? Something less than human, but also something more.
News 1 has confirmed that a nuclear weapon of unknown origin has detonated 10 to 15 miles offshore of southern Manhattan. Estimates place it at roughly 5 times the size of the bomb dropped at Hiroshima.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
No, I guess I just tell everyone we're okay. You know, we're gonna be okay. New York will bounce back.
Hey man, if it wasn't for the Marines, we'd be dead, all of us. They risked their lives to save us. We owe them. I have Sergeant Detweiler here with me. Sergeant, what can you tell us about the present state of the infection?
Since last night, nothing. They don't seem driven in the same way. They're not a real threat anymore.
It's been 10 minutes since the Vice President has been on the ground. Senator Ambrose is expected to make a statement.
New York has weathered the first act of biological and nuclear terrorism in the history of the world. It is a testament to the men
and women of the United States Armed Forces that New York is still standing. We will find those responsible. We will drag them out of their hiding places, and we will make them pay. Wherever they are, whatever weapons they possess, they will learn the final lesson. America does not start wars, America ends them. Thank you.
And so New York will rebuild. And that is the end of Prototype. So I hope you've enjoyed. Let me just give my thoughts on the game. It's a good game. I like it a lot. It's not great though, but the places that it shines outshines the negative aspects of the game. Specifically like the gameplay itself. It's what makes the game fun, and it's incredibly satisfying. Especially when you can get around New York as quickly as you're able to, and also get to a top of a building within seconds. It's really quick, really great. The variety of powers and attacks that you can use is a great feature, allowing the player to decide what direction they want to go when completing missions. The variety is there, and I love it. Each power that is available has its own style to it, like the Hammer Fist or the Whip Fist, with some similar attacks between powers like the Claw and the Blade. And each power carries its own feeling of weight behind each attack. So it's really the mix of movement and combat that is just kind of great for the game, makes it flow really well, and makes you really pay attention to what you're doing. However, the game is not perfect, of course. I find that there are too many attacks that do the same thing or get the same effect. The only difference between attacks is pretty much its aesthetic, how flashy they are. When you get further into the game, of course, to unlock these moves, you tend to not use these flashy attacks because they're either slow, more complicated, or they're not really that efficient compared to previous simpler moves when they do the same effect. And there's not really a good balance, I found, overall. Especially when you're dealing with specific enemy types like the super soldiers and the hunters. Most attacks are only really effective against standard people, civilians, infected, or military enemies, but there's not enough for the larger enemies. And I really wish there was, so you were able to use more attacks and whatnot. And because of this imbalance between the large amount of attacks versus the few amount of enemy types that they're effective against, it really hurts that kind of variety that the game boasts and what is really good. There's a lot of other things I can really say about this game, but I'll put that in the video description, especially my thoughts about the disguise mechanic, because I really like that a lot. It's a very unique thing, and I wish that more sandbox games would actually use it. I love the consumption. I've already said a lot about the plot in terms of throughout this entire thing, so I'm not going to say any more. It's not a great story, but the gameplay makes up for it in spades. But I really wish that it was better. It could have been, instead of like the confusing mess that it was that left a lot of open things going on. Maybe it's actually filled in the sequel. We'll find out, I guess. But we're still not done. Even though this is the finale, like this is the end of the main game, there's still some post-game actually, because we haven't finished off all of the events. And the rest of the videos that are going to be after this, there are going to be 3 videos, and they're all going to be about the events. First step is actually finishing all the events, and then there's actually something afterwards that unlocks when you finish all the events completely. And then the final update is going to be about my own personal challenge that I implemented for myself in the game. So hopefully you'll stick around for that. I'm really glad that I was able to show off this game in the magnitude that I did. It was an incredible amount of effort, and it's probably going to be my LP so far that has had the most amount of effort put into it. But in terms of one recommendation, if you're going to get this game for yourself, I would recommend getting the console versions over getting the PC version. This was played on the PC, and there are a couple of issues that I definitely have with it. One is that the audio is not all that great. I experienced a lot of desyncing issues with cutscenes, specifically, as well as numerous crashes playing the game. Another thing is actually the frame rate of the PC version is definitely inferior of the console versions. So if you're going to find a used copy of this game, definitely go for the PS3 or the Xbox 360 version and play it on that instead. And definitely have some more fun with it. But yeah, this has been Let's Play Prototype. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I say that because if you haven't enjoyed this, please let me know. I don't know if you don't tell me. But yeah. If you're not going to stick around for the post-game, take care to you people. And for the rest of you, I hope you stick around for the post-game, because there's going to be some interesting stuff going on. But of course, to everyone, I will just say this now. Take care, everyone.